Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Chris Chapman. Hi, everyone. I am that gal. I am Lorianne from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
And in this episode, we have Chris Chapman, and he is the founder and host of Next Level Mind podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm super excited, and I love that we're knocking this out on a Monday as well, just starting the week off right.
So, Chris, how did you get into podcasting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I grew up in a family that was extremely social. You know, I was early age, and my parents would always have their friends over. But I grew up middle class. So I was always wondering, what's that's next level in life, quote unquote. And so when my folks would have friends over that, they drove a nicer car, or they would go on vacations, not that necessarily means you're successful, but those are some attributes that come with success. I was always asking, what do you do for a living? Do you own a business? What career field are you in? At seventh grade, eighth grade level, versus when some of my friends were just back playing video games, I was out there collaborating, talking with people. So I always had a passion for hearing those stories. And I've always had a passion for wanting to impact people, really helping individuals really strive to reach their full potential. So when I got up to Charlotte, I had just graduated college in 2018 and in a new city, new career, new life. And I thought, how can I combine my passion for hearing successful stories and wanting to impact people? And I thought, the podcast is the absolutely perfect medium to kind of combine those two passions there.
I mean, it's interesting because, computer, a microphone, a camera, boom, you're in business, right?
Yeah.
And it's open. It's whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. And you can just run with it too. I mean, you can have different types of guests. And like you guys mentioned when we were talking offline, you may have one vision for the show, and then it could streamline into a whole nother vision or field just based on kind of the guests that you're having for the show.
Yeah, I love those. I love the surprises every now and again. We do go off. We try and bring it back on though, because we do want to have people understand who this person is, but it gets so intriguing that one thing that happened in their life that we tend to go on with it. So did you ever want to be like, let's say you're a radio announcer, or did you ever have that passion of being on TV or something like that? Or did this just come about?
That's a good question. So I've always been that kid that's liked being in the front and center of everything. The life of the party. I was that kid growing up that your parents would have people over and I'd be like playing drums on pots and pans at 5 or 6 years old, trying to just showcase the party. So I've always loved being front and center. I had a small stint in my life where I'm I would love to be a movie star or something like that. But I've always loved business too much, honestly, to just go into acting or TV shows. So I think a podcast is great for that, because my show is very business centric. And I can also combine kind of the third passion of mine, which is business, on that same platform as well. But yeah, to answer your question, I did kind of have a small stint where I may could do this. And I've been an extra actually in a TV show called Vice Principals on HBO, which was an absolute blast. I was just a football player and a scene in the gym. I guess that means I was muscular back then. Who knows? But it was a great time. So.
That is really cool. So in regards to business, what attracts you so much to it? Because I can get it. I love business. I probably, when I was married, that was the closest thing that we were together. We're in business and our passion for it. So what brought you to that?
So I think with business, I love the entrepreneurship side of it, because I think you can be first off in control of your own destiny. And you can also provide a product or service that adds value to people out there. So you see people like Elon Musk, for example. I mean, he has completely revolutionized the electric vehicle industry. And then he has SpaceX and the Boring Company, all these different industries out there. So as a business leader, you have the opportunity to make such an impact, which goes back to, again, one of my main passions. And even if you own a small company that has 15 employees, and if you're the CEO of that company, you have the opportunity to impact 15 lives from 8 to 5 when your employees are there, but you also are impacting 15 families as well by providing them income. So think the cool part of business is having that why of, hey, I'm in this to provide a quality product or service to help people, but I'm also in this to really give back to my employees that are helping keep this business run.
That is something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roy, did you have a question? 'Cause I was just going to say, like,
No, I was gonna say, it's really you think about it, it's this huge responsibility, because not only are you providing for your family, but you've got those other families out there that you're basically helping to provide for.
Yeah. And it's a lot of pressure. And I think it's having that humility of like, as a leader, knowing that you're not perfect and you can make mistakes. You're not going to be the best leader out there, but you can do those things that are going to help you be a better leader. You can listen to the right podcast, read the right books, read the right articles, hire a consultant to come in and guide you on some strategies from an outside perspective. But yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but it can be taken off by doing those areas that I mentioned. And also just realizing, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to drop the ball, and kind of letting go of some of the stress that comes with that position and that title.
Yeah. It's interesting because in the industry I was in, one of the things, I mean, you can open the phone book and find 100 electrical contractors. Okay. So what sets you apart? And one of the things we learned about was called value added service. So what could we provide that nobody else was providing, and that kind of niched us in some places, because we had something that everybody's getting the standard electrical contractor, but we could do this, and this for you as a value added service. We're providing this to you, no charge. It's just, for you. And so that kind of helped us in our finding our place in the market, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because I think, to your point, you opened the phone book, Roy, and there was 1,000 electrical contractors. But I think it's important to say, what can I do to separate myself apart? For example, in my 8 to 5, I work for a company. I'm the director here of the Charlotte region, and we make economic business reports on major cities. But within that report, we also sell advertisements. So I run the region, but also am part of the sales process as well. So some of our clients and customers, right now, we're doing everything over Zoom, just like we're collaborating today. And it's super hard to separate yourself apart, because you're just another guy on a computer screen when you start a meeting. So I think it's breaking down the barrier and saying, hey, how can I be different in this meeting? And if they become a customer, what can I do to help them feel valued? And I think it's going back to some older roots, writing a thank you note, calling someone instead of just texting them, and being that different approach, because people are going to remember that, rather than, oh, this guy just emailed me, hopped on a Zoom, and I haven't heard from him in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's something that Roy brings up a lot about the, how we went from being very customer service centric to moving away from it during that, internet boom. It became a lot less personalized, and yet we seem to be moving back into it.
Yeah, totally. And a perfect example of this, the other day I went to a butcher shop to go buy some steaks. I had a gift card for the place, and the total went up to about $45. And I just wasn't even thinking, didn't even bring my wallet, debit card, cash, or anything. I was like, oh, the gift card will be okay. And the gift card was for the main store, not the franchise. And I went to one of the franchise locations. And I was like, look, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. And he was like, look, you seem like a good guy. I can tell you're going to come back in here. Just take them for free. It's on the house. No worries. And I mean, it was $45 for the New York strips. And he could have easily been like, oh, no, sorry, man. Like, come back another time. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. And he's never even seen me before in there. So I thought that was a great example.
And I bet you'll go back.
Yeah, been back a few times ever since. So
yeah. Well, I think for a period of time, we got away from relationships. I think now people are starting to go back to relationships because they're tired of voicemail. They're tired of email. They want to actually have interaction with a real live human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's important to also be yourself in business. I made a LinkedIn post about this the other day, that I think people, especially on Zoom, they put on kind of a face of kind of fake professionalism, if you will. And I think in business, just be yourself, outside of work and just my personality. I'm a laid back guy, just like this podcast. I'm a pretty goofy individual. So I bring that to the table in business and people love it. Like I called a guy today and been trying to set up a meeting with him, and he finally picked up the phone. We're talking, and then he's like, yeah, I can't meet next week. I can meet the next week after that. And he's like, I'm going on vacation. That's why. And I was like, oh, like, where are you going on vacation? Like just starting to collaborate. And then I'm like, are you taking your family? And then we just got into this long conversation about like how it's great to go surfing right now in certain parts of the US. And then I'm like, wow, like this guy's been ignoring me for 3 months and we're just talking about surfing with your family. So
Yeah.
That's good. You broke that little
yeah, break the
wall that was
barrier.
yeah, the barrier.
Well, I think people are like the fact that you're actually interested in them, not just making the sale or whatever, that you actually, show some kind of care towards them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And some of my best deals have been just from hopping on a meeting, talking about their lives and talking about what they like, what they don't like, what they do on the weekends. And then maybe 55 minutes of the meeting is personal talk. 5 minutes is actually business. And then we end up winning their business because you were a friend before you were a salesman. So kind of using the example of dating, if you were going on a first date with somebody, would you immediately be like, hey, and you might, I don't know, but hey, do you want to come meet my family after this? Like, they'll love you. Don't worry. No, it's like take them on a date, get the coffee, get the lunch, move to dinner, and then maybe like a couple months on the road, hey, you want to meet my parents type of thing. So
We were thinking about that, and it's happening on LinkedIn too, which I found I really like LinkedIn because of the business aspect of it, and then I love Facebook because of the social aspect of it. There's like a difference on that front, but then LinkedIn tended to be a lot more conservative in regards to I'm going to jump into your space, and I found that just recently it's been a little less. Like you'll add somebody because it's a business contact and you're understanding that we're going to build some sort of like relationship, but they've been jumping in to your space like, oh, I have this to sell you, instead of wow, I saw what you do, this is what I do, where we're talking about the relationship. Do you find that, like, I mean, I know that there's such a strong push towards not doing that, building that relationship before doing that, but there's still people doing that. And I mean, how do you feel about it? What do you think about it?
yeah, so there's an ongoing joke on LinkedIn just about people doing that, which I'm sure you have seen. And I'm pretty big on LinkedIn. I mean, I spend 2-3 hours a day on the platform, really building personal brand on there. It really helps the podcast as well. But my opinion on that is I think it's pretty ridiculous that people just connect with you and immediately send a message. I had a message the other day and he'll be nameless just because, I don't want to bash anyone, but he gets on and connects with me and immediately sends me a message of, hey, I'm reaching out to founders who own 200 person plus companies and who have 10 million in revenue about some service, like consulting service. I'm like, whoa, like first off, I'm not even in the industry that you mentioned. Second, I don't have a 200 person company. And third, I don't have a $10 million company as well. And he's like, oh, sorry, like my marketing team must have put you on the wrong list. And like, he didn't even research me. He just went with his marketing team saying, oh, he's part of the list, reach out to him. And I could tell it was a copy and pasted message. And it's so easy to do. Like I do it sometimes too, but I'm starting to way less, but it's like humans are inherently lazy and they check off, oh, I reached out to 10 people today on LinkedIn. Check, I'm doing the right thing. I'm moving the needle forward. But one of my good friends, Justin Kelsey, says this. I had him on my podcast the other day. Cool story, by the way. He just jumped from the 8 to 5 to his full-time company and he's doing great things. But he said some advice the other day. He said, hey, if you have these habits that you're doing, you need to self-audit yourself. Reaching out to 10 people on LinkedIn, is it actually working? Sending those 5 emails, is it actually working? Calling those 10 people at 3 p.m., is it actually working? And I think with LinkedIn, these people need to just audit these things. It's like, is this actually working? And I guarantee you the ratio from close to rejection is super small because the automated just blanket messages don't work anymore.
I find that interesting that person can even take responsibility for it too, though, and they're putting somebody else under the bus. I find that to be a negative as well. The first thing I would think about is I wouldn't want to do business with you if you're going to take, have to point fingers. Even as entrepreneurs, even when we fail, we have to look into that, whether, you've got, and this is where you're talking about having employees, yeah, and then all of a sudden you have a recession, or you have like the pandemic. I went through a recession. I could blame it all I want, but I also have to look at what did I do or not do that was part of it, and that's how you grow. And so pointing fingers at everyone is it's not gonna work. It This guy could have easily said, my mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look into our marketing department. That would have been a whole different way of stating it, but that's me.
I totally agree. I'll echo those same points there.
Well, I mean, that's like me. You know, I was a manager, so I always took responsibility. Even though somebody down line, you know, I'm the one at the end is responsible for getting it done. You know, so I'm not going to say, well, Bob didn't do what I told him to do. You know, I'll say, well, yeah, we missed that. You know, I screwed up. You know, because it's not, to me, it's not fair. Even if they did make a mistake, you know, you're in charge. You know, you can't always circumvent all the mistakes, but still, and I always felt like it was my responsibility to take the hit, you know. So plus I had a lot of employee loyalty because they all knew I had their back. They could trust, you know, they could trust me. So,
Plus, you probably hired him. Actually, you're the one who probably hired the guy.
Well,
who
some of them, yeah,
so.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
So, but you know, but anyway, so I think, you know, like you say, just blanket. Oh, Susie made a mistake. You know, that's not good.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Because you see, it's transparent. You can tell, right? You knew right away what it was.
Yeah, and people are just getting tired of it, and especially now that you can connect with anyone, people realize that, and then just blanket approach. And yeah, you have to go a different approach, whether it's commenting on a couple of their posts before you reach out, whether it's looking at their background, even if it's something simple as, you know, let's say someone went to University of Texas. Hey, I have a friend who went there. Did you like it? Start the conversation just like you would at a networking event. Like you wouldn't go up to someone at an in-person networking event and say, hey, I have these blah, 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 and just go off on a sales pitch. You would say, start a conversation. So do the same approach that you would in person on LinkedIn or email or call or whatever the case may be there.
That's what kills me though, is that our profiles are on there.
Yeah.
When somebody asks, so what do you do? Wait, I have everything I've ever done on my profile. Did you take the 2 seconds before asking me that? Now that's not as much on LinkedIn, but it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And even on my Facebook, my profile is there. So before you ask me what I do, take the time to check out that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm really concerned because I actually did add somebody today. His name is Chris, and I don't know if he's going to send me some nasty stuff. I'm kidding. I did that though. Thanks.
We'll see. Yeah.
I am curious though if you can tell us a little bit more about your podcast, Next Level Mind. What do you focus on? Who are your guests? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's mainly entrepreneurs and founders. And the whole premise behind it is really getting from point A to point B. So what did it really take for them to get to that level? Because I feel like you look at successful people and they always document their ending point, but they never really document what it really took to get there. So I really like to peel back those stories a little bit and really like pinpoint a lot of lessons that my listeners can implement. Because I feel like as a young person, which I am, a lot of my listeners are 25 to 35 years old. You look at somebody who's mid 40s, extremely successful, and you're like, like if only that was me, or that might not be me. And I feel like my generation of millennials, it's two sides to it. One is just the absolute movers and shakers who are streamlining a ton. And the others are like, I'm just going to do my thing. It's not going to work out. Like, I'm not meant for this. So I'm trying to break that barrier and say like, hey, this happened to this person. They got from point A to point B and did this. And what like lessons did they implement into their life that you can also implement into yours?
It's interesting. I've got 3 children who are in the millennial, and I have my daughter keeps saying that. She goes, with the housing market and, when are we going to be able to ever afford a house when, and so on and so forth. But really that is, there's a lot more, pressure, I think, on the millennials to really be that mover shaker. I do, because it's not easy with I look sometimes and I go, wow, I was only paid 30 years ago. I mean, I was paid almost the same as what, an executive secretary is getting paid today. There's not a huge lot of difference. And yet the housing market is plummeted. So, that type of thing. I get that.
It's interesting from millennial stories. I knew a guy, he was interviewing a guy, millennial, right out of college. So this kid comes in, sits down and tells the guy, well, if I decide to come to work here, how much vacation do I get? How much of this do I get? How much of this do I get? And how much of this do I get? And the guy, he's telling me, I'm like, the guy, I mean, I didn't even get a chance to ask him his name. He just started asking all these questions. And I'm sitting there thinking, where did he come from? I mean, what, anyway, so he said, well, he started telling, and so this kid says, well, how long did it take you to get to where you are in this company? He said, 30 years. And the kid goes, 30 years? Oh, no way. 5 years tops for me, or I'm out of here.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, I was so blown away. He thinks he's going to come in here right out of college, get this high paying job with all these benefits, and he's going to be in charge in 5 years. And he said, is this what's coming?
Yeah. I think a lot of us lack patience, which is really annoying. Just like that guy, lacks patience. 5 years, and no, it takes a lot longer than that.
I hate to say it. Okay, I hate to say it, but I'm like a borderline Gen Xer. Like I just, at the end of the boomers, and some people say I'm a Gen Xer. I'm one of those they can't figure out. We were like that too. We would go, I'm going in. I don't want to start as a secretary. I want to start as a senior manager somewhere. I think it's inherent in the fact that particularly people who have, I don't know about this guy, but a lot of young people have a lot of ambition. It will tend to be like that in their minds. And, even if their parents too say, get a great education and you'll come out and you'll have a great job, which is not true. You have to work for that great job. It's not automatic. I'm not saying that's not true, getting a great job, but you do have to work towards it, is what I'm saying.
One of my best friends growing up, as soon as he graduated from college, he was saying, oh man, I'm going to have this great job, make all this money. So he goes into the interview for, it's ABC Broadcasting. It's one of their places here in Dallas anyway. So he goes, sits down, the guy's looking at his resume and stuff. And so the first question the guy asked him is, why should I hire you? And he goes, well, I just graduated from college. He goes, there's 500 more just like you outside the door waiting to come in. What now? Why should I hire you? Take the college degree out of the equation. And Mark didn't know what to say. I mean, he was like, because he thought, well, I got a college degree. But of course, back then, that was back during the Vietnam era, and people were going to college. There's more people going to college then than before, and right. So that was a weeding out point at that time,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and so it took him 6 months to find a job. He took one that he didn't really want just to have a job.
Yeah.
So would you say, Chris, was there any one fascinating facet of one of your podcasts that you had a wow on that stood out?
Yeah, it actually goes back to what we were just talking about. I had this guy, Zach Friedman. He wrote this book called The Lemonade Life, which great book. I would read it, buy it, share it. It's an amazing book, but I had him on there. And he brought up this story about his friend. He worked at an investment banking company when he first started. That industry is obviously notorious for having extremely long hours. And this new guy on the job, and he told this story on my podcast, his boss said, hey, we need you to get this report done by tomorrow morning. The new hire looks at it and he's like, okay, cool. And then Zach at the time was a step above him, looked at the report and said, dude, this is going to take you till 7 a.m. Maybe you can get it done by then. And he wants it by 7. So they stayed there all night looking at this, doing the report, doing all that. And it was just an amazing story because the guy kind of had a realization, like, is this life? Like, is this what it takes to be happy? And Zach kind of peeled back the onion and said, like, you can start being happy now. You don't have to put it off till later because sometimes later, unfortunately, never comes. And I think going back to like the millennial generation, I think that's something that we're really starting to realize, because, I watched my dad, and my dad's still working upper 60s. I watched him work 50, 60 hours a week, come home late, make dinner, go to sleep every day, maybe go on one vacation a year. And I think our generation is like seeing like, okay, there's this thing called experiences, and it's super important to have these at an early age. And I think COVID actually kind of moved that up a little bit, because you had people from all ages, unfortunately, passing away in the States. And I think people realize like, man, I need to have experiences. I need to do this. I need this. I think happiness right now, for all generations, of course, is getting put more on a pedestal than it did in the past.
I look back on my work life, it was just like your dad's.
Yeah.
So, and I told my boys, I said, wherever you do, work is not the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because, family, your kids, they're only going to be here for a short period of time. And what you can't get the time back.
Totally.
So,
And time, yeah. And I think we're also putting time management more on a pedestal as well. So, I have so many different things going on: a full-time job, a podcast. I'm running a tech company with 2 friends, getting married in July. Like, my schedule's all over the place. But like, I still had time this weekend to go golf. I'm still have time this Thursday and Friday to go on a vacation. I still have time to go out to eat sometimes on the weekdays. Like, it's really figuring out how to alter your schedule to deal with the daily demand where you're not working 60, 70 hours a week. And honestly, if you really ask yourself, like, once you get to that 60-hour plus mark, are you really being productive, or are you just working mindlessly? So that's another thing you have to point out.
yeah.
I find too, I'm starting like, I love what I do. So being 18 hours here doing whatever I do, whether it's podcast editing and writing my books and that. But after a while, that exhaustion causes you not to be as productive, because you'll make mistakes that you have to redo, or you're just not focused. So it doesn't help to, overburden yourself with all that time, because just the overexhaustion will cause you to be less productive.
Well, we used to have a 40-hour work week. Now the work week is 60 hours minimum. Yeah. 60 hours is the normal work week. So that's the bad part about it. But like you say, and I agree with most millennials, they don't necessarily want a big house. A lot of them don't even want kids. They're more about what's going to make me happy. I need enough to get by. I don't need a big mansion. I don't need the fancy cars. I'll ride my bicycle. I'll have a smaller house, but for that very reason. They saw their parents, and they don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I know a friend of mine, and small apartment, old car, but he goes on 15 pre-COVID, of course, 15, 20 trips a year. I mean, very extravagant trips. And, people are valuing different things now. It's not just the big house, the nice car, a couple of vacations. People are really like kind of shifting what means a lot of value to them.
Yeah.
So.
More what's in it for me than what's in it for the company.
Yeah. Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
I'm surprised too, like I've always loved tiny homes, and it's really going like wildfire right now. I mean, I even have, just on Facebook, I have this page, and I have like over 1,000, well, almost 1,000 people who are following me, and I hardly put anything up there just because it's my tiny house. And I believe that that's a big part of the way things are going to go too.
Yeah.
To travel more, there's a lot less burden on space. Maybe not tiny homes, but smaller homes where they're fully lived in, right? Because you're really only living in a couple of spots.
Things are not as important to millennials.
Yeah.
Like they were to us.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have like literally in my personal budget, I have a category called experiences, and it's travel, concerts, new like it's just new things to add into my life. And I think that really puts the proof into the pudding right there, that I have that in my budget category.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it for sure. So Chris, how can our listeners reach out to you?
A couple avenues. So we're just talking about LinkedIn. You just Chris Chapman, you'll find me on there. if you want to send me a sales pitch, connect with me, build the relationship first, and then send it over is what we were talking about. Instagram's big too. It's just Chris Chap. I do a lot of stories on there, post a lot of snippets of the podcast, do a lot of Instagram lives actually on there as well too. And then the podcast is just Next Level Minds. And we do episodes every other week. And then on the third Monday of the month, I do a Motivation Monday episode where it's me just talking for about 10 minutes about personal development, entrepreneurship, different things, kind of themes to really get the week started.
Perfect.
Really appreciate that. And congratulations on your wedding in July. Wish you all the best for that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in the thick of the planning right now. So lots of moving parts, but hey, it's slowly coming together and we're both really excited. So
fantastic. Thanks so much for being with us today, Chris.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.